Hi, I'm Steve Rappaport, Knowledge Solutions Director for the Advertising Research Foundation and the author of Listen First, Turning Social Media Conversations into Business Advantage. Talking today with Radha Subramanyan from NM Insight. So, welcome Radha.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about NM Insight.
Sure. We founded NM Insight last year. We realized that social media is something that all of our clients are really interested in and concerned about. We realized there were opportunities in helping people figure out metrics, but also going beyond that. Embracing and understanding social media begins with measurement. It's about culture, it's about talent, it's about systems. It's about ultimately reorienting your entire company around what a customer or consumer is about today. So NM Insight brings together the insights capabilities of the Nielsen company with the consulting strategic arm of McKinsey to guide clients across sectors.
Right. So what are some of the problems that clients are coming to you with?
Let's start from the very beginning. People don't know what social media is all about. They know the buzzwords, they know that everyone's talking about it. They've heard, of course, of Twitter, and most of them have a Facebook account. But what it means for your business still remains a mystery to many of them. And people who are older than 25 are intimidated. They're afraid of this thing that seems like a youth phenomenon, even though they know their grandmother is doing it. So it's about what is social media, and ultimately what should I do about it. So we help them in their insights function, but across the company. We may begin with marketing, but we're then talking about HR, we're talking about CRM, we're talking about supply chain, we're talking about every piece of the organization and how you need to reorient for a 21st century universe.
Right. I agree with you fully because listening information, listening insights are applicable across almost every department, because every department touches a person in some way, shape, or form. Right? So how do you bring together the lawyers with the manufacturing people and the marketing people and so forth and public relations, and get them to agree that this is something that will benefit them?
So you begin by just sharing data with them that's completely relevant to their world. So the lawyer cares about the crisis. The HR person cares about talent and where to find them. So you talk to them in their language, show them KPIs that matter to them, but then also share with them what matters to the company overall. Is it sales? Is it something else? Because the entire chain is impacted by your engagement with the customer, whoever he or she is. Right. So begin with the small and the relevant, but then tie it back to the strategic.
Yeah, and so is it necessary then to develop a special organization for this, or how do you manage it internally?
I absolutely do not believe that you should have a social media function or organization that's separate from the rest of the organization. Social media is everybody's job. You all have to be listening. There may be people who are more adept at, say, executing social media marketing campaigns or interpreting all the buzz data out there. But social media is everybody's business, and it most certainly should not be siloed.
Right. So would you say that in order to have a social media strategy, you really need to be a social organization?
I like that way of phrasing it. I think it's a refreshing turn of phrase, and I think we all need to be social organizations. We're used to being antisocial, for lack of a better term, or we're used to dealing with customers in a very specific, controlled form. But the entire landscape of engagement for brands has changed. There are channels we control, our branded website, the channels of advertising and so on, but there's so much that's out of our control today. From all the tweets to all the blog posts to what's going on Facebook, that ultimately, yes, I think we need to be social organizations, which is engaging across with our people.
Yeah, and so for NM Insight, because it's such an interesting model, because it really is getting at the organizational aspects and the strategic aspects. What kind of customer do you have? Who comes to engage with you?
We have customers across sectors. They may be in financial services, they may be in the media business, they may be in pharma and somewhere else. And the wonderful thing about Nielsen coming together with McKinsey is we talk to CMOs around the world, so we know their problems and we know what they need. So I want to underscore that point, that social media is not just for media companies or those in the technology space or something else. It really is for everybody.
Right.
And some of our most progressive clients when it comes to social media are in highly traditional businesses.
I happen to agree with that. Would you go so far as to say that one of the problems with it is that it's called media? Because what we need to do is, because when we call something media, it evokes a very traditional mindset of how we communicate, what we expect consumers to do, what effects we want, and if we don't call it media, then we could be more open to really the potentials of involving and interacting with people differently.
I have a slightly different take on that. I don't think we control the nomenclature of something like this. I think this has happened and that ship has almost sailed, to use a cliche there. But I actually think all companies are now media companies. We were used to thinking of media companies, as television or digital or something else. But you're all in the business of media because you all have websites, you all have channels of communication. And the amplifying effects of your communication are far more than you imagine, because it's that person who calls you on that customer service line, who then tweets about it, who then posts on Facebook about it. So rather than not calling this social media, to encourage all of us to think of ourselves as needing to own our media.
In the work that you do, are you looking at people as sort of having knowledge about brands and things that that sort of, in a sense, makes some advertising really not necessary?
So I wouldn't go as far as that, because a quarter of all conversations online are about brands. At least some section of those brand conversations are driven by advertising.
Right.
But I do believe that we need to think of advertising more holistically. It doesn't start with that 30 and stop at that 30. When we make that 30, we need to think of its digital extensions, its social media engagements, the conversations it's going to trigger.
Right.
So I would say all advertising has to be social.
Yeah, that's a really important point, because we were talking earlier today with Visible Measures, which is very involved with social video data, and that was their point too. So there seems to be a kind of maybe nascent or emerging consensus around the idea that media has to change, that media has to be built and designed and executed in such a way that it has social elements, and that's you'd agree with
I think
that?
a lot of us are really, really beginning to think that, because the days of brands controlling conversations, or of media companies completely controlling where their content shows up,
Right.
are a little bit dated. We can't control all of it, but let's make sure that we make it shareable, we make it accessible, and that we give people interesting things to talk about. There's plenty of stuff to talk about, but let our brands be the ones that pop.
Right. Do you have a vision of how companies you think should be operating in, say, 5 years or so?
So at Nielsen, we have a very simple mantra: simple, open, integrated. But it's a very, very powerful idea. Whatever we're doing should be simple, right? And all companies need to be simple in what they're doing with regard to their social media or their marketing strategy. We all need to be open internally and open externally, because I believe we are in a new age of transparency. Hiding things doesn't work anymore. We really have to be open, and we have to be open to ideas inside our companies and open to ideas outside our companies. And finally, integrated. We have to think about across media, we have to think across silos, and be integrated in a really, really fundamental sense with our customer. Because again, it's a relationship, it's not a one-way street. So I would say simple, open, integrated in everything that you do.
Thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'd love to continue it.